Yeah, okay. I mean, I'll start sort of more conceptually, and then I'll talk a little bit more technically. But I just want to expand on what Miles was saying about excludability. So there's two properties that you need to own something which are present in the real world very easily, but difficult in the digital world. One is excludability, which is that you can prevent certain parties from consuming or accessing the thing. But the second one is rivalry, which is actually the consumption of the thing by you prevents simultaneous consumption by other parties. So rivalry and excludability. And smart data is the first rival and excludable digital good, would be the best way I can describe it as a concept, right? Because both of those properties are satisfied with smart data. Now, the way this is done, and I'm going to talk a bit more about the concept of ownership here, because fundamentally to be able to spend, or to sell something or to buy something, it has to be ownable. And there are three kind of pillars of ownership which smart data was sort of designed around, and they are the fundamental three pillars of ownership, which are uniqueness, access and control, and protection of content. And that last one is an optional one, because there might be some situations like with music where you don't want to protect the content because you want people to listen to it, right? So the last one is sort of a privacy layer which you can add, but those are the three pillars. We solve those. So we solve uniqueness in a way, and you could argue that NFTs have gone part way with uniqueness, in the sense that there's a link that says that file is the original. And so there's a uniqueness aspect there. Yeah. But the uniqueness is coming from sort of a pointer type situation, right? Type mechanism. We impart uniqueness through encoding the file itself with a unique kind of, we call it like a binary DNA, which is obviously a conflagration of two scientific terms, but it's like a DNA in the sense that it's fundamentally encoded into the binary of the file itself, which when passed through the Zenotta digital system will reconstruct the file so that you can view it or you can access it, right? So that's how we impart uniqueness. It's a form of uniqueness which is fundamental to the actual asset, to the actual file itself, which is the strongest form that you can make. And then the second pillar being access and control, we impart this with a series of encryption keys, asymmetric encryption keys, that allows you to firstly encrypt that encoding file, place that encoding on the blockchain, encrypted, with that as part of your blockchain entry, which is under your control via the standard public-private key pair, in the same way that a Bitcoin is under your control if you own that Bitcoin, right? So rather than a coin, what you've got is something we call a data rights signature, which is a collection of hash values that demonstrates that you have control of that asset, and this encoding scheme, this encrypted encoding scheme, which allows you the ability to, if you wanted to recode the file to your own unique identity. And that's really, really key. Then you have the additional pillar with the privacy. You have that coming from an additional round of encryption, which you can implement if you wish. So between all of those, between encoding, encryption, asymmetric, symmetric, and the key pair, you have satisfied those three pillars of ownership. And that's what smart data is. And that's why we call it a non-fungible asset, an NFA, because it's the asset that is being owned from the blockchain, not just the token.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's the kind of the quantum leap here between that and an NFT. Right? Yeah.
And I want to just talk a little bit more very briefly about go back to the uniqueness aspect, because this is a really key feature. If you think about why a physical object in the real world can be said to be the original. Let's take the Mona Lisa for an example. This is like a tired analogy with NFTs and so on, but let's take the Mona Lisa. It's like, why is that Mona Lisa worth more than the print that I have on my wall, right? And it's not because there's a big book somewhere in a dusty office that says that I own it. It's because there is, and it says that that's the original. It's not that something's written down saying that's the original. It's because it's made of different stuff, right? The paint, the canvas, like it's composed of fundamentally different molecules than a copy. Just in the same way that a Rolex watch, original one, is composed of different materials than a copy. And you can tell which is the original because it's made of different stuff. And that's what you have to do with a digital object. You have to make it out of different stuff from any copy. And that's why you need to encode it in the binary level with the uniqueness, rather than just write in a database.
So it's about capturing the fingerprint of that uniqueness rather than only sort of securing its owner, essentially.
Or writing down that it's the original, or writing down that you're the owner of it. It's about imparting a physicality to something digital. Which is, that was the thing that we had to solve. That was the hard thing.
So you will have two JPEGs, but you can say which one is the original.
Yeah, they will have different binary. If you compare the binary of the two JPEGs, they'll be different. And the only way you'll see them looking similar is you pass them through the Zenotta digital system. And then it will reconstruct the image. But the actual file that's held off-chain somewhere has a different binary from a copy. And the copy wouldn't be reconstructed to produce the image when passed through the Zenotta system.
It's technically impossible that I just copy-paste it in the same...
You can copy-paste the file, but it won't be useful to you because you don't have access to the encoding scheme.
Then you can... Okay, got it. Brilliant,
in order to reconstruct it. Yeah. You're never going to prevent copy-paste, but what you can do is make it useless. That's the idea.
It's like if the Mona Lisa was in like a locked box, and you copied the locked box. You don't have the key. You don't have the Mona Lisa. You just have a useless box, to some extent. Yeah.
It's a good analogy.
Okay, good.